can make you tired or they can make you energetic, depending on how they manipulate your computer. And so it's kind of interesting to watch because we're seeing more and more of what looks like manipulation of human health and also manipulation of, in other words, our energy levels by positive and negative ions. There's all kinds of things that are going on. And, of course, this starts to reach into, in other words, areas where the government will talk about quite openly, will talk about how they have experimented with negative and positive ions, and NASA talks about them, and they talk about energy levels and how they can control certain types of energy levels. But in addition, if you look at just jet emission pollutants like ozone, you have lung function impairment, chronic inflammation, increased hospital admissions, respiratory infections are easier. You can have human heart conditions, and the health effects, they say, are the same on animals as humans. And you can have premature mortality. And when you have volatile organic compounds, you've got eye and respiratory tract irritation, headaches, dizziness, visual disorders, and memory impairment. So there's a lot of experiments going on people, and that people don't know why they're sick. And I think that this is another area in which it's easy to begin to experiment on us to see what reactions we're having to their different experiments.
It's kind of interesting that you say that because I don't know if you've heard of Agenda 21 or the UN Agenda 21, but it smells like Agenda 21. It smells like a population control. It smells like that type of thing where you have something injected into our environment that can cause these things, that can cause hypertension, that can cause these health ailments that can adversely affect you, and at the same time accomplish their objective of whatever the heck it is, passing their legislation. It's almost like I don't know how to put it, it's like a catch-all. Oh, look at this. We can modify the weather, and we can make global warming more of a problem, and we can pass our legislation to increase taxes on the people, and at the same time, we can cause them to have all these health issues, which they can go to the doctors, and they can then get their pharmaceuticals, and these pharmaceutical companies will make a ton of money, and we'll get some taxes from them, and everybody's just happy. And that's the way it seems to be. Now, you did say something about your ionic chemistry and your ion health. And Griff, I know you did a lot of research on the ions in your body. What is good as far as your health is concerned with that regard?
Are you asking me?
Yes, sir.
The balance between negative and positive ions, it's always the balance. Simply stated, when your balance gets in favor of the positive ions, you become ill at ease and thinking patterns and not feeling good and so on. You're always better off slightly. If you had a choice, you wanted slightly to the negative ions. But yes, it happens after electrical displays, electrical storms, so on, the ozone in the air, all of that. Ozone is pretty close to oxygen. It's one molecule off. I have a couple ozone generators in the house. I love ozone. I would breathe it all the time. It's the other pollutants that will do you in. For the life of me, I do not understand. Maybe it could be explained to me tonight why the EPA always goes after ozone. I love it. I think it's used in operating rooms as an antiseptic. It's actually a good thing. But I guess water, you can drown in water if you have too much of it. If you drink a bottle of iodine, you're going to be sick and maybe die with the poison. But a little bit of everything is good. But I never understood why EPA and states go after ozone as as a harmful gas. Never did understand that.
And that's normally what they test for now in California. They rarely test for anything except size of particles, not type of particles, but size of particles and ozone. So when you have air quality alerts, it's only because it's particulates or ozone. It has nothing to do with any other chemicals that the state finds, because they don't test for them in most cases, and they never issue alerts on them. So if you talk about air quality in California, then now it's only ozone and particulates, which seems to me to be very odd, when other things should be more important that they should be testing for. And this is the California Air Resources Board testing in the state.
I asked the EPA here in Virginia one time in their office, what if you no, it was the water people. It was the state level for drinking water people. If somebody dumped a tractor-trailer load of formaldehyde and arsenic into the water supply, would you check for it? And they said, no, we're not mandated to check for that. We only check for what the federal government mandates us to check for.
How do you like that?
And there you are. And they're not going to change. Nobody, the Congress is not going to look at this. The states are not going to look at this. They're getting their paychecks. The Congress just voted themselves another $5,000 raise. It's not going to happen, self and family.
Well, in California, we passed Proposition 65 many years ago, which required the EPA to do more. In other words, to talk about more toxic chemicals and to test for them. So actually, most water sources and most water districts test versus other states for a much wider range of chemicals and toxics in drinking water. So we can tell right now that for some unknown reason, arsenic, for example, is spiking across the entire state of California. And we don't know why all of a sudden arsenic has started to increase in levels when in most areas it was zero. So California, because of the laws that we passed here, under, in other words, our system, which is actually more stringent than federal in some cases, we have been able to find out more. And if you go to the California EPA website, you can find more information than sometimes on the federal EPA website, because we're more stringent and have to list more information here. So people who need more information can sometimes find it on the California EPA website versus the federal website.
The news today said that California is bankrupt and they will start issuing IOUs as payment to vendors.
That's correct. We go through this periodically, but I want to say something about California being bankrupt. And, when they talk about pensions, one of the things that happened under a Republican governor several terms ago is that they started to put the money, the pension funds, instead of in secure investments, they started to put it into hedge funds and derivatives. And when they did that, and there's been some really record number of local state governments that have gone over, because what they did is that instead of taking this guaranteed where the income would be guaranteed, they started to take state and county and local federal funding, and what they did is they stuck it in the hedge funds. Well, when they stuck it into all these markets and hedge funds that were questionable, when all of a sudden all this money was taken off the top, it came back that the states had lost money. So no one talks about it, but one of the reasons that California is in the shape it's in is because their investments became worthless, and we were never made whole. And so not only were California taken to the cleaners with Enron, but we were also taken to the cleaners because they started to invest money into these questionable investments on the market.
That's really incredible.
So nobody talks about that. They say, well, we don't have the money. Well, they never tell you in California, but I have the documents for that, because it was pretty discussed pretty widely. And a lot of people said, you've got to keep your universities and you've got to keep these various institutions and the government out of some of these funds because they're questionable, and if there's a collapse, there will be no money left. And that's exactly what happened, and that's why a lot of states